Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you could join us for the second session in our Dorothy Mullen Speaker Series. Tonight's topic is Smart Snacks, Optimizing Brain Power, presented by Tammy L. Sands. And who doesn't need help and welcome help with that? Tammy Sands is a professional practitioner of mind, movement, and advocacy. As the founder of Lightness of Being, she strives to bridge the gap between the health of people and the health of the planet, as well as provide agency for the equity and empowerment of all living entities. Tammy's work is research-based and draws from scientific principles while simultaneously being rooted in spiritual and universal practices, much like Tammy herself. Tammy is a registered nurse, certified Ayurvedic practitioner, and holds a master's degree in environmental law and policy with a focus on food and agriculture. She considers the interconnectedness of the whole being, group, or organization in relation to her, his, or their society, and to the planet. Tammy is passionate about helping to provide healthful resources and justice for all living entities. This evening, we are fortunate to have Tammy's time and attention turned toward us. Please welcome Tammy Sands.
Thanks, Marion, for the introduction. I also just wanted to mention that I am a firm believer that food is our first line medicine. So what will we talk about this evening in relation to optimizing brain power? Well, I would like to provide a wee bit or a dash of background on Ayurveda and how it relates to the brain. We will also talk about our go-to snack foods, brain slugging VITTLES, and how it is really all about the walnut. Then we'll mix it up and have some smart snack recipes and identify why they are indeed smart snacks. And then we'll talk about other food items as well as going beyond foods before coming to our conclusion. Next slide, please. So Ayurveda, it's the science of life, or from the part of the word Ara, meaning life, and Veda, meaning knowledge. Ayurveda defines health as the absence of disease, and it utilizes a holistic level of vitality to prolong life. It is the traditional system of medicine of India, and it seeks to treat and integrate body, mind, and spirit. It uses a comprehensive, holistic approach, especially by emphasizing diet, herbal remedies, exercise, meditation, breathing, and physical therapy. So you can think of it as more of a preventative or a proactive approach to our health and well-being, unlike the Western healthcare system, right? So we wait until people are ill before we treat disease or symptoms with medication. So this style, Ayurveda, is more of that proactive approach. Ayurveda is also often referred to as the sister science to yoga, or the yogic lifestyle. It's not, and when I mention yoga, I don't want people to be confused. It's not just about poses, right? The asanas of the yogic lifestyle. It's much more than that. It's very integrated. As I mentioned, going through mind, body, and spirit. So just to mention that, and according to Ayurveda, the mind has a very powerful influence on our overall health and well-being. So the mind has it, right? So if you put your mind to it, you'll accomplish it and achieve it. Next slide, please. So according to Ayurveda, each of us is born with our tailored balance. You could say of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These are doshas, and they are believed to express the unique blend of us physically, emotionally, and mentally, right? So they call it our physical, emotional, mental characteristics, or our constitution, our makeup. And doshas are derived from the 5 elements, or the mind body types. And Vata is ether and air. Ether space, in case you weren't aware of that. And then Pitta is fire and water. And then Kapha is earth and water. So Vata, Pitta, and Kapha each have a very important role to play in the overall health, provided that they remain in balance. So that's the key thing, right? So when they're provoked, each of them tends to cause a specific range of imbalances or diseases that can manifest either in the physical body or in the more subtle realms. So beyond the physical senses, our mind, our emotions, our higher consciousness, and directing our mind with per se, meditation, right? It supports the evolution of our consciousness to encourage thriving mental and emotional health and well-being. Next slide, please. Thank you. So optimizing brain power, right? In someone that has the Vata constitution or their makeup is Vata. So Vata governs the nervous system and the mind. So it results in the mind being especially susceptible to Vata imbalances because it's primarily composed of the air and the ether elements themselves, right? So if somebody's has an imbalance, they might be experiencing instability, agitation, or a hypersensitivity in their mind. They're often the result of overexertion, overworking, stress, trying to attend too many things all at once, times of travel or transition in our lives, and overstimulation. So like the overstimulation, the lights, the crowd, the technology, loud noises, or loud music, stimulants such as nicotine, caffeine, and recreational drugs, and excessive exercise or sexual activity. And when you look at what I was mentioning about the overstimulation, right, the lights, the crowd, the technology, that's our life right now, right? So this is a key one to try to keep in balance. Vata can also be elevated in the mind as a result of a vodka-provoking diet. So what is a vodka-provoking diet, right? It's a diet that may include too many dry, light, and rough foods like raw vegetables, crackers, dried fruits, and the like. Where a balanced Vata is associated with us being creative, intuitive. We have clairvoyance, the capacity to connect with those subtle realms that I mentioned, have a profound spiritual understanding, and a natural sense of expansiveness. So now we're going to come into the Pitta. So Pitta being, remember, the fire and water element. So Pitta governs the insight and the intellect, and it's associated with the gray matter of the brain, and it has a very important connection with the mind as a whole. If you look again at the little icon, it's a person that's typically medium built. Their eye color actually may be pretty piercing. They may have reddish hues to their skin color, their hair, and they're pretty direct individuals. So there's, no small talk. They like to get right to the point. So that's just a little bit about the Pitta. And if you feel like that calls to you, one thing is that when we have accumulation of Pitta in our mind, we tend to have a little bit of anger, hatred, irritability, frustration, impatience, resentment, envy, judgment, criticism, a rigid attachment to one's personal beliefs and perspectives, excess ambition, and a ruthless desire for power. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I was looking at this from a sense of, school children or young adolescents in like judgment or criticism, right? Judgment with friends and peers, or also the criticism with maybe themselves in a sense that, they're hard on themselves about, they got that A plus, they got the A minus instead of the A plus. So I just wanted to mention that, and we'll get to the power part too, because Pitta can be elevated by foods that may include things that are too hot, or just hot, spicy foods all the time, right? Especially sour foods as well, oily and also fried foods. And then when we see Pitta in balance, it's associated with courage, confidence, willpower, intelligence, leadership. And that's why I want to pull out that power one, because there's a difference there, right? The ruthless desire for power is power over people, where leadership is wanting to empower others. And then the sense of vision and the acceptance, contentment, satisfaction, enthusiasm, cooperation, and the capacity to surrender. So wouldn't we all, want to and want our children to feel that way? And then the next slide will go into Kapha a bit. So Kapha is a more full-bodied, curvy figure type individual. And Kapha governs specifically for the brain structure, actually the structure of the brain, and also lubrication in the body. And it's associated with the white matter of the brain. So that adipose tissue that comprises the brain and the nervous tissue, adipose being fatty, just in case you don't know that term. And it's also strongly connected to our capacity for memory. So I don't know if anybody here might say, I've said it in the past to my sister, actually, that she has an elephant brain, right? And it's because she remembers everything, like everything from our childhood and even now, like in current day, as we're aging. And I think, why does she have that great ability that she can recall everything? And so for fun, I was looking up elephants. Elephants actually have 257 billion neurons. That's 3 times more than the human brain. So I thought that was funny and a good connection there, right? But if we have too much Kapha, right? Too much Kapha can tend to cause lethargy, complacency, laziness, depression, stubbornness, attachment, greed, emotional possessiveness, and a tendency to hoard material possessions. Kapha can be elevated because of a kapha-provoking diet, which might include too many, especially heavy or dense foods. Fried foods, again, come in play here, as well as cold foods. Like if we're having too many cold foods like cheeses and ice cream. I don't know about you, but this summer it was so hot, I definitely probably had a kapha imbalance for a while there eating ice cream. Not a good thing, I know, but a balanced kapha, though, is associated with love, compassion, patience, groundedness, loyalty, steadiness, endurance, and an overarching sense of ease in one's life. So now I'm going to have you go to the next slide, and I'm just going to ask people to just type in the chat for me, what is your go-to snack? Like when you think of a snack, and what's your go-to snack? Mm-hmm. And then as you're thinking of your snack, chocolate, I see. Yeah, that's a good one too. I went for ice cream this summer. You went for chocolate. Popcorn, mixed nuts, salty crispy, almond crackers, cheese and jam. Yeah. So then when you think about the go-to, right, the go-to snack foods, think about why you choose these types of food, right? So what is it that draws you to chocolate, fruit, and cheese, or almond butter and an apple? So just, put food for thought, and then ask yourself, like, what do you feel like after you've snacked on certain stuff, like 1 to 2 hours after you actually eat? And if anybody wants to put that in the chat, feel free. Craving something. Content, pretzels. I like this. There's a lot of good things out there that everybody's herbal tea. That's a good one to actually crave. Yeah, craving around early mid-afternoon. That makes sense in the Ayurvedic clock. So the Ayurvedic clock divides the full day out in the same elements that we're talking about. Good. So thanks for sharing that and putting that in there. So I think moving on to the next slide, Marion, then we'll just talk a little bit about that. So brain slugging, VITTLES. What do children usually want to go for? I know a lot of times they'll, pizza, different things like that they'll run to, or processed foods. So what happens is that when we're ingesting heavy foods, such as meats and dairy, especially aged cheeses, as well as fried foods, it can really, they have actually those high kapha dosha properties. So what that means is that every element, even the foods we put in our mouth, have these elements in them. So kapha dosha properties are associated with those dense, thick, soft, or sticky qualities. And that typically will cause stagnation and inhibit our brain function. So an example of that is if we had a real high kapha diet, our blood may be thick, oily in quality due to the high triglycerides or the fat in our blood. And that may cause low flow of blood across the blood-brain barrier, right? So the blood-brain barrier is crucial in our immunological features of the human's central nervous system. So brains included, spine as well. And it's composed of many cell types. It's both a structural and a functional roadblock, you could say, to microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, viruses, parasites that may be circulating through the bloodstream. So consumption of refined sugars and carbohydrates is another one. And that is where, it'll turn off or short circuit the brain. And that's because those types of snacks are readily absorbed. They're converted to glucose in the body. They cause the blood sugar and the insulin levels to spike, and they prevent actually the hormones that quench our hunger. So even as we're eating, right, we keep on eating because it doesn't trigger fast enough to tell us, like between our mind and our bellies, that we're actually satisfied. So over time, researchers have found that this pattern of eating, it can wreak havoc on our metabolic health, and it leads to typically weight gain, an increase in type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. This is included in children, school-age kids. They are seeing a spike in the number of cases of type 2 diabetes with children. Drinking alcohol can also cause damage to brain tissue, so particularly in the frontal lobes. And those frontal lobes are responsible for functions such as problem solving, reasoning, abstraction, planning, our short-term memory, as well as our emotional regulation. So like you might have heard in the past, like an angry drunk, right? Somebody that when they drink, it triggers that emotional regulation, and they don't really filter very well. Caffeine is a stimulant that also aggravates Vata and Pitta doshas. So if your body type is a Vata or a Pitta, and you tend to drink caffeine excessively, so you go above and beyond, then it causes our thoughts to jump from one to the next. We don't have like that nice, steady mainstream of focus or attention on one idea at a time. So I'll give myself as an example for that, and that is, I always say that Tammy's too much on caffeine. So it is where literally I feel like my mind is a pinball, and I will be scattered between many thoughts. And I might start vacuuming the house, and the next thing I'm doing something else, and I didn't finish the first task. We can move on to the next slide. Thanks, Marion. So here we are all about the walnut now, right? So the walnut, it's not a coincidence that the walnut resembles the brain. And what I like to say here is that nature has a beautiful way to show us the importance of relationships and interconnectedness. And it's typical, just on a side note, that an antidote plant may grow right next to a toxic plant, such as poison ivy, right? So if you're poison ivy, typically right next to it is jewelweed. You get exposed to the poison ivy, you take the jewelweed on, and it neutralizes it right away. Well, I love this because when you take a look at the picture here, I'm showing you, the walnut and then the brain. So they have similarities. And that is, they both grow inside a shell, right? So the walnut has its shell, our brain has a shell, it's the cranium, it's the skull. Both have right and left hemispheres, both have upper cerebrums and lower cerebellums. And the wrinkles are the folds. So you can see that, right, in the nut and also the picture of the brain. Those wrinkles and folds are like the neocortex, right? So those are they're the part of the brain that's involved, you could say, in that higher order brain function. And it's our sensory perception, it's our cognition, it's the generation of motor movements, spatial reasoning, and language. And so oftentimes you'll see that when adolescents, young kids in sports, or even younger kids now, I guess, start earlier on, if they get a concussion, right? Those are the things that they kind of like are first noticed in the individual. You can move on to the next slide. And so with the walnuts, scientific evidence is suggesting that walnuts support the development of greater than 36 neurotransmitters that enhance signaling and new messaging links between brain cells. So there was a day and time that there was a old science, you could say, in medicine, that the brain couldn't heal and it couldn't regenerate. And actually, there's so much evidence out there since then that says that it definitely can. And so the walnuts themselves prevent neurodegenerative diseases such as dementia and Alzheimer's. How it can do that is that the extract in the walnut actually breaks down that protein-based plaques that tend to gather on the brain cells and axons. So we promote brain function because the walnut has those omega-3 fatty acids, and they're converted into the DHA. This is a word that I always basically butcher since we're talking of food, and that's the docosahexaoxalic acid, which is, it enhances our neural communication and promotes our neural growth. And there are numerous possible active ingredients in walnuts that may be contributing factors in protecting our cognitive function, such as they have high antioxidant content. I didn't know if you realize that, but only 3.7 millimoles is needed, basically, coupled with iodine and selenium, and it adds that ensuring optimum function of the brain. So it's got all these good things within it. And the walnut is the only nut that contains a significant source of alpha-linoleic acid, or ALA, and it has both heart and brain health benefits, right? Again, it's another omega-3 fatty acid, and which is necessary for normal human growth and development. So in a study that was done, what was found out that this significant positive associations between walnut consumption and the cognitive functions among adults was regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity. So I thought that was extremely interesting. So I'll just take a pause right here and see before, if we get into the snack recipes, if there's any questions, or if you'd just like me to continue on, because now we're to the good stuff, the recipes.
Anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. Well, if we go on now, I'm happy to ask questions.
Okay.
Take them up.
That sounds great, Marion. Thank you.
Wait, we do have a question. Is it important for nuts to be organic?
So I'll tell you what my Ayurvedic professor taught me. She always basically went like this, held things on a scale. And she said, when you can't get, something that's organic, but you can get this, right? This is always going to be okay and better, right? So she would always actually do a pretty extreme correlation with Chick-fil-A. I think that's how you say it. Is it Chick-fil-A? I'm not the fast food place that they just by the Wawa. And like she would always put that on the scale. So it's, you know, if you can buy organic, absolutely, that's a great choice. But if you can't, it's not going to matter. You're still going to get what you need.
That's when what we call that nutritional harm reduction. It's better to have a conventionally grown nut than a chip out of a bag. So the nut is still a nut. Somebody had asked if you could just review the three body types again quickly, just the names.
Okay, so it's the elements that we talked about. So it's Vata. So Vata is your ether, which is space and air. And then your Pitta is fire and water. And Kapha is earth and water.
Okay, so is there such thing as too many walnuts? If we're talking about everything in moderation. So I guess it's the serving sizes that we need to maybe.
Yeah, and here's what I like to say, like, is there too much of anything? Of course there is, right? We have to do things in balance, right? So it's almost like, you know, people got on the kick, right, of kale, right? And my one other Ayurvedic professor was like, I'm so sick of hearing about kale because people kind of go to extremes then, right? Like you get, oh, this is really good. So again, it just comes back to balance, you know, eating things in balance and not excessively, or not only eating, you know, a certain thing always.
And if you go from a extreme of never eating it to only eating it, there is a chance your body will say, what? So easing your way into that healthier way of eating is important. I know that people who've done that 180 of never having any vegetables and then eating all these vegetables, they can sometimes have problems with oxalates. So, and it's because they went just, you know, to one extreme. Yeah. So another question. So we're getting a lot of questions. How do you want to do this, Tammy? Do you want to go through this and then go through all the questions at the end? We can. There's quite a few questions. So. Okay,
so let me move on, and then we can definitely try to address more questions at the end, just so we don't run out of too much time.
Exactly.
All right, thanks, Marion. So the first snack. So somebody put in chocolate, right? So here's another thing. It depends on what kind of chocolate you're eating, right? So in this recipe, and again, I actually when I did this presentation for Princeton University, I was teaching it to the college kids, right? College students, postdocs, those kind of things. So I'm also thinking of things that they would like. And it happens to be three of my favorite recipes, so it didn't matter. So one is dark chocolate. So it's walnuts, dark chocolate, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, and blackberries. You basically throw it in a mixing bowl. It's so nice and easy. It's dark chocolate, contains flavonoids, or plant-based substances, you could say, that are a group of plant metabolites that are shown to provide health benefits, specifically through the cell signaling pathways of our brains. Again, they have that antioxidant effects, and it benefits the brain function because of that anti-inflammatory effect as well. Then we've got the nuts in there, right? You're thrown in the walnut. You got to have the walnut after I just talked about that, right? So you just basically toss it all up, and it's a quick, easy snack. But a little bit more, right, about some of this stuff. So the dark chocolate itself, and I focused on the dark chocolate here, is that it reduces pitta because of its bitter properties. And I'm gonna just tap into, I'm saying bitter, right? That's a taste. So the 7 tastes, and it's believed that in Ayurvedic tradition that if you have all 7 tastes within one meal, could be a snack even, right? That then you're satisfied for a much longer period of time and you don't typically crave. So I just wanted to throw that in there. That can be a whole course on itself because there's a lot to say about that. But what I found really interesting in doing the research on this is that Did you know that the places where chocolate consumption is the highest, they have the most Nobel Prize recipients? That was from a study that was done in 2012, and it was published by the New England Journal of Medicine. So I thought that that was so interesting. I kind of like to see where if it's moved around a little bit since then. The other
talk about brain food, right?
Yeah, right. Berries are, berry fruits. So berry fruits, typically the reason I go to berry fruits more than other fruits is they are lower in sugar, typically, I'm going to say. And they also contain the high levels of those antioxidants, right? So protecting the cells from the damage by the harmful free radicals that are spinning around. And also that they change the way the neurons in the brain communicate. So another little interesting study that had been done. Also that these changes in signaling can prevent inflammation in the brain that contribute to like that damage and improve both motor control and cognition in an individual. The fun thing about berries is that they actually have an astringent taste, and they pacify pitta dosha as well. And so just again, the taste, the 7 tastes, it's sweet, it's sour, salty, bitter, astringent, pungent, savory, or umami or meaty, as they kind of label that one. And well, one thing that's interesting in Ayurveda is that rice is actually considered sweet. So even though it doesn't have the sugar properties, the taste on the tongue is sweet. And so that gets classified in Ayurvedic world as sweet. We can move to the next one and we'll just move on. So that's the actual recipe that you'll have and the information that's provided to you. And then if we just want to move on to the next slide. So within eating, and I think that this is really important, and I think it gets more important as our lives get busier and busier, and we're expected to be always like doing something, right? What does mindful mean to each bite? Like it's going to mean something different to somebody that's actually sitting at a table in a quiet place, to maybe running your child, your young adolescent to their music lesson or to a sport, right? But if just for a moment that child can put their phone down, close their eyes for a second, even if it's just for a second, and just, kind of, yes, connect with their food. Because if we do that, it actually allows us to pause and just take a moment, because what we want to do is start developing a relationship with that food, the ingredients, the preparer, how it got to us. So these interconnectedness with all living things is so key, because that's how we absorb the goodness from the food. It actually does do a lot with our emotions and our mind. And so one of my Ayurvedic instructors used to say, a lot of people that are into the Ayurvedic way of cooking and eating don't necessarily go out to eat a lot. And that's because they want to know who's preparing their food. They want to know that their food is prepared with love. We can go on to the next slide. So the second recipe that I have up here is an egg, spinach, and tomato and avocado salad. So again, thinking of things that can be easily prepared for a snack, right? Usually when you want a snack, you're ready to eat like, 10 minutes ago. But this one is easy when you think about it, because what we can do in advance is hard boil our eggs, right? Have hard boiled eggs in the fridge. We can, avocado isn't hard to quick half and cube up. Spinach, right? They come in the tubs, they're pre-washed anymore. So that one, it may seem like, there's several ingredients, it might take some time, but it actually does not take that much time. And the good thing is that egg yolks contain choline, and studies are showing that deficiencies in choline may contribute to age-related mental decline. Egg yolks are also hearty and nutritious, and they are a tonic that pacifies vata, right? So And Vata is always the one you want to go for in a sense of helping to pacify first, because of what I was saying. It's like air and ether, right? It's like the high level. Spinach or any leafy green, it can boost the brain because of the folate, the beta carotene, as well as vitamin K, which has been discovered in newer studies with spinach specifically. Few foods have multiple tastes, but spinach actually has several. So it has bitter, pungent, and astringent properties. So it reduces kapha, but it could increase pitta and vata, just to know, right? So one thing is that it can provoke the pitta, but cooked spinach eases that. So again, it's the property, right? If it's cooked, if it's raw. Ginger is somewhat like that as well. So ginger in its powdered form compared to its root and grinding a fresh root give different properties and ease in to the different doshas. Tomatoes, awesome, right? They contain 2 types of carotene. They're like our safeguard fat, which the brain is mostly made up of. Fat is real gelatinous. The lycopene and the beta carotene, both powerful antioxidants there. And the lycopene helps regulate the genes that influence inflammation and brain growth. Avocados, they're one of the foods that are highest in lutein, right? So a plant nutrient that keeps the brain cells healthy. It's also because with the avocados, they're high fat content. So it's the combination of that. Actually, the lutein is more readily absorbed. So this fatty fruit has cooling properties that pacify both pitta and vata. And in a study that was led by Dr. Elizabeth Johnson, she is a professor of nutrition at the Jean Mayer USDA Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging at Tufts University. The study that she led showed a significant increase in memory and problem-solving abilities from avocados. Next slide will give you the actual recipe, which you'll get, and then bringing mindfulness. And always just wanted to remind everybody also to allow the tongue, right, to sense the textures of the food. That's also very important, right? So that's where we're tactile and individuals, right? Sensing those textures on our tongue and then letting the taste buds do their magic.
Yeah, chewing is really important when you're eating. It's important for your brain to know.
Yeah.
So people who are on at least smoothie diets, you need to chew. You need to.
Right. And so I'm glad you say that, Marian, because it throws me right back to what I was saying about kapha, right? So it's the properties of it being like soft. So if you're having soft stuff all the time, of course, that's going to create an imbalance. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought it up, the smoothies. So the snack I wanted to also include here is salmon crisps. So with lox, little crispy like wafers, capers, dill, and I put in here vegan cream cheese. Obviously, other stuff as well. You can have the real stuff in moderation, of course, or in a balanced way, of course. But we were talking about vegan cream cheese specifically in this one. But what I wanted to mention is that the salmon is one of nature's best sources for that DHA that I had mentioned before, because of the essential fatty acid being so important for brain health. And it's really the brain's favorite omega-3 fatty acid, you can say, and it's primarily found in oily fishes. DHA is also one of the 3 primary types of omega-3s, and your body can't produce it on its own. So salmon's a great way to bring that in. And it's this is what I love about it. DHA it's like a warm winter coat for neurons, right? It's like pulling on that warm winter coat. It's that for your neurons as well as actually your brain cells. So it making up the majority of their cell membrane and the cell's outer coating, right? It's that nice fluffy stuff that you can't poke it kind of thing, or you can, but it kind of bounces. Also, this essential fatty acid protects neurons from injury, just like I was saying, like how it bounces. It helps because it actually keeps it like gelatinous almost. Reduces cerebral inflammation. It helps produce neurotransmitters that tell cells what to do and is essential for like quick information, right? So the transfer down the axon, the neuron's highway. So for testing purposes, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute as well. And then I think you can go to that next slide, Marion. Okay, so yep, so our bite. So just wanted to remind everybody again, and then the actual thing. So other smart food items. I brought up about the raw vegetables, and it doesn't mean you can't eat them. It's just, again, in balance, and that if you are real Vata, maybe you don't want to have so many raw vegetables. But I wanted to bring up fresh raw vegetable juices. And the reason I wanted to bring up that was specific to beet juice. So beet juice is wonderful in helping to build blood and nourish the brain. So that's, like a smoothie with beets in it. Now that would be fantastic for the brain. Beets help strengthen Pitta's positive qualities. So it promotes good memory. And they contain high concentrations of nitrates, which are then converted to the nitrites by bacteria in the mouth and help open your blood vessels, right? So the blood vessels open in the body, it increases blood flow, oxygen, and then also it typically in the white matter, so those frontal lobes that I was talking about. So also herbs, right? So we have herbs, and one of the herbs that's fantastic and is kind of like a golden herb, you can say, in Ayurveda, is that turmeric. It's the plant of the ginger family. It's an antioxidant. It's an anti-inflammatory, and that's specific to its curcumin compound that its makeup is. And it can increase brain-derived neurotropic factor. So that's a type of growth hormone that functions to support the brain, the neurons, in forming new connections, as well as helping multiply. So multiply and increasing the number. Poorly absorbed into the bloodstream, though, if you're not consuming it with black pepper. So again, knowing kind of those idiosyncrasies, right? You could be eating all the turmeric you want, but if it's not paired with black pepper, which contains the pepperine, which is a natural substance, it actually absorbs 2,000% more. So very significant, right? Go on to the next slide. Black pepper, it improves memory. And how it does that is it heals nerve damage or memory impairment in the hippocampus, which plays a major role in our learning and our memory, as well as the piperine in the black pepper acts as an antidepressant. It improves cognitive ability, and it helps to provide clarity. Who doesn't need some pepper these days, right? And rosemary. So I have a fun story about rosemary. This also enhances memory with just the smell of it. So you don't even have to eat it. It's just the smell of rosemary. And according to recent studies, one of the main chemicals in rosemary has been linked to brain performance by increasing speed and accuracy on tests. So my fun story about that is that when my kids would take big tests like SATs and all that kind of stuff, or they had a big test in high school, I would literally fix them a breakfast with eggs and also give them a stem of rosemary for their pocket to just kind of hold and smell. And salt gets a bad rap. And I definitely wanted to go into salt a little bit because studies have indicated, just like with fat, that the role of salt in the body may be misunderstood, right? So salt is a vital nutrient that is essential in maintaining many of the body's functions, like promoting long-term memory health. Who would have known, right? And you just need to pick the right salt, right? So unprocessed salt, you like a Celtic salt or a salt with no additives or caking agents. And the bonus about that is that salt in our foods help get rid of excess mucus, which is useful in reducing congestion, which can be in our lungs, our nasal passages, and their properties of kapha. One thing here I wanted to mention is popcorn with rosemary and sea salt, because I remembered somebody had mentioned that too, and that popcorn was what they went for. Well, now just make sure you add a little sea salt to that, crush a bit of rosemary and throw it on, or sprinkle some rosemary oil, and it's awesome. So now you've just made even a healthier snack in a way for your brain. And although foods closest to their origin, like we were talking, right, about walnuts or the smoothies, even like purifying things. Actually, if foods are in their original form, provide the best access and they're their best source, right? So that's why, like in Ayurveda, foods are basically the first line medicine, but then supplements, they do allow supplements, but they don't take a lot of supplements, you could say. They really try to get it from their food sources. And one of those supplements is Brahmi brain. So that can be used, and that's considered like a sattvic, like the highest value of a supplement. And it's also in the most, you could say it's the most powerful brain tonic in the Ayurvedic apothecary. It's great for also sleeping. And I think that that's another thing that I wanted to bring up, because our brain heals best when we get good sleep. And we know, like, we're on the screens, you're on the phone screen, watching TV, we're on screens a lot. So we get that blue light, and we tend, like overworked, right? Students that are studying and overworked, staying up late, not really getting their sleep. That's also key in Ayurvedic, is to get your sleep. And then you can move on to the next slide. And I'll just quickly say that if you're really interested, this is just a little bit about, kind of spark some ideas for you, but there's actually a recipe book that is specific to calming and clearing the mind. There's plenty of Ayurvedic, wonderful Ayurvedic recipe books out there, but this is one that I found to be specific for the mind that I thought was a good one. So when we go beyond food items, and I'm just going to run through these really quick because I see that we're almost out of time and I want to answer some more questions. Pranayama, or breathing techniques, right? Also helping to stimulate the brain. Inverted asanas, or yoga poses, and that's the head being lowered, lower than the heart, lower than the body if you can. That produces a lot of flow, optimizing the brain's function. And the next one, when we, our conclusion here basically is that if we have to optimize our brain power, right, we need to ensure that we have a balanced constitution, or our makeup, bring in consciousness to what we eat and how we eat it, so that we can reduce the inflammation, the free radicals, and promote unhindered lubrication and blood flow, right? So that's what's going to make the brain more sparky, you could say. And then memory function and overall health may be optimized simply with the choice of foods that we put in our mouth and the relationships that we have to those. So I definitely wanted to end on that note. So thank you. I know it's a lot of information. I'm just touching the surface, but it's definitely food for thought.
It is. And thank you so much, Tammy. This has been absolutely amazing. I have never seen so many questions of people really engaged and wanting to know more. You've touched on so many different levels of new information, and just people really wanting to reinforce what they may already know. So it is 7:59. I just want to check with you on your time. If we can extend maybe 5 minutes for questions.
That's fine. We'll do that.
Okay, yeah. So somebody had mentioned in here about the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. We can send you that list. That's the Environmental Working Group's guide each year of what to avoid that is not organic, and what to buy conventional if you can. Let's see. What about walnut oil? What about pecans? Pecans kind of look like walnuts, so I'm going to kind of try and group things together.
Yeah, okay. So again, when somebody mentioned oil and then the walnut, just like I mentioned, when it's closest to its natural source, that's when you're going to get the most benefit. But of course, use the oil. Like if you use the oil in salads, a great way to still get properties.
Are roasted walnuts okay?
Yeah, so roasted again, it's, a raw one will be its more natural form, of course, but roasted, okay. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Are dried fruits metabolized by the brain, liver, by the body at the same injurious way that refined sugars are?
So it depends, because a lot of, if you get like snack mixes and stuff, there may be added sugars on those, right? So they sometimes coat them in that. So again, looking at your ingredients, making sure that it's, it doesn't have added sugars. So, it could.
And what we tell people when you're looking at dried fruits, to look at what you would consider as a serving of a whole fruit, that is a fresh fruit. You're not going to eat 15 prunes because you normally wouldn't eat 15 plums. So, just kind of make that comparison, because the dried fruits are still good for you. They have the fiber and they have the nutrients. They just are just much more, there's more sugar per serving. So, or again, look at it like it's a whole fruit. Are frozen berries as good? Yes, that I know. Frozen berries are oftentimes, they're frozen as soon as they're harvested. Let's see, somebody gets sores from eating canker sores. That's everybody's biological individuality. If your body's telling you it doesn't like it, listen. Celery have different tastes, which could be a bummer. Cream cheese lack nutrients. So I'll let you answer that.
Well, I think, again, it goes back to like eating in moderation, and also that on that, in that recipe, right? It was a vegan cream cheese, and it's just like a little, like putting butter on a small cracker. Does it lack nutrients? In my opinion, anything that's processed isn't going to have full nutrients, right? So it's not going to have the full nutrients. It goes back to being the original source. So yes, there's a truth to that element.
And again, it's moderation, right? If this helps the delivery system of the salmon,
yes, exactly.
Then I'm all for it. But again, moderation. Or you can, I'm really liking, different yogurts, that you can sometimes gives you that same creaminess. Eating lox on a non-wheat wasa versus on a bagel. How will that influence? Okay,
so I can speak to this one from a point of, so the wasa, if I'm remembering correctly with those type of, it's more crunchy, right? So it's almost like cracker-like. And bread in a bagel can be soft, right? So think about those properties that I was mentioning, right? So the soft is the kapha, the crunchy is the vata, right? So those are the different properties in that difference, right? So it is actually them themselves are have doshas, just like I was mentioning all foods.
Turmeric, in what ways is it best to benefit from it? Baking, saute type of food.
Yeah, and that really goes back to the source. With it, and if you have it in powder form, which most of us do, making sure that maybe your heat temperature isn't up real high, or you add it kind of after, like if you're putting it in a soup, that you wait till kind of the end of the soup, then put it in, right? So it's going to keep the goodness, and don't forget your black pepper.
Yeah, I add turmeric to a lot more than I used to, and it's amazing what it does for the color. Somebody's giving their son rosemary for their SAT on Saturday, so
awesome.
I guess different. Let's see, nutritional Himalayan salt. What do you think about that?
Yep, Himalayan salts are great salt as well. There's actually a lot of salts out there that are really good. What you need to look for is just to make sure that they don't have any caking agents.
So really, it's reading that ingredient list, right? It's
absolutely.
There's something in there you're like, why? It's probably not needed. Let's see. What about MSG and nutritional yeast?
Yeah, so I think are they saying in nutritional yeast? And MS, I don't want to speak to that much just because I don't feel I have enough expertise in all the MSG stuff that, is alluded to. But nutritional yeast in general, I know a lot of individuals, like for instance, many vegetarians and vegans, they'll add nutritional yeast to things. But as far as speaking about the MSG specifically, I don't have the knowledge on that.
I know that a lot of people are really sensitive to it, and they don't even need to be told that it's in something. They can feel it. And that tells you something. That's listening. That's how you feel is data.
Right. And that would be the same with gluten, right? So somebody that eats gluten, it's the same thing that they're gluten intolerant.
Okay. So it is 8:05. So I want to be considerate of everybody's time. But I think we got through a lot of the questions. Somebody with 3 meals a day versus 5 small meals. Really, again, it's biological individuality. What works for you? We eat so that we don't have to think about food all the time, right? Like if you're eating those meals that really sustains you and leaves you feeling satiated for longer. And sometimes that's meaning eating low fat versus no fat, because that might keep you full longer. That's the reason why we eat. So again, it's really listening to what your body is telling you. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody's questions. I'm hoping that we were able to cover many here. We will be sending out the presentation. It sounds like, Tammy, we could have you back, because there's so much more to go over. I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did too. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please check out some of our upcoming programs. We are in the middle of our Mindful Mondays program. That's a 4-session program delivered by Joseph Walechko, and you can still sign up for that. That's by donation. This is by donation. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please support us if you can. Again, we never want people to not be able to come because of financial reason. So we are offering so many of our programs by donation only. But we will be sending more. If you do have other questions, feel free to send them to if there's a burning question that you have, you can send them to Marie Morrison. She manages all of our programs, and her email address is programs@eatingforyourhealth.org. Thank you all again, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone.